Okay, hello, hello. Welcome to this week's episode on Life Redefined. I wanted to talk this week all about letting go versus giving up. And I wanted to share a little example story that I have recently been going through and a little metaphor along the way. So, letting go versus giving up. I feel like this is something that a lot of us can get caught up in because essentially, even when we're trying to think like, okay, like, something's not really working out, oh, I can let that go. But then even in that process, we feel we can have resistance or have a lot of self-doubt or questions come up of like, oh, like, am I doing the right thing? Or is this, you know, the right path for me? And a lot of the time that can actually bring about this feeling of that, like, we are giving up on something. And I really wanted to just shed light on this and just kind of break down kind of my own personal like examples of what both of these mean because they have two very different energies. So, like when it comes to giving up, this is more an energy where we could essentially be letting our circumstances dictate our own actions. AKA, like you're giving your power away to the things that are going on around you. And essentially, the deeper part in that whole process is that we ultimately don't trust in our own ability to navigate those hard times. And yes, like all of us go through this. So I also want to like normalize this process too. Like there are times where we might give up on something and that is okay. And, sometimes like life is hard, And so I don't want to like discredit that or, make anyone feel that it is something they shouldn't be going through. But I wanted to just make this clear distinction about giving up energy versus letting go or releasing something. So, as I said, giving up is kind of two pieces of like having certain circumstances dictate your own actions, which are things that are out of your control, and a deeper part of not trusting in our own abilities. And on the flip side of that, like really thinking about letting go and releasing, this is a deeper component where when you decide to remove something in your life or change something in your life, it can look like giving up, right? Like to other people, or even to yourself. But really thinking about the energy behind it. So letting go to me, is really about knowing that it is safe and okay to trust the unknown, to allow ourselves that space to be like, you know what? I don't even know what's next, but it's okay. And this is that deeper part where it's like trusting yourself regardless of the outcome and knowing like you still have your own back with whatever is thrown at you after you release that thing. And I mean, this is a big component too when it comes to expectations and societal norms and just like pressure, right? And letting go and releasing is also a component of truly allowing ourselves to release the expectation or need to control everything in our life, right? Like, you know, so let me get into my example of where I'm really going with this. And, like the thing is, like, when life hits us in the gut with like some crazy shit, like it will be hard. It will be uncomfortable. It will feel heavy. But I wanted to just share this lens today on the podcast because you can handle heavy. You can handle hard. You can navigate that crazy shit. And you can trust that whatever comes of it, you can handle that outcome. And I feel like that is like a nervous part of this process, right? And as I said in the way I explained letting go is knowing that it's safe and okay to trust the unknown and that whatever comes of it, like you've got yourself, right? So I want to share my example with you. And it's going to sound funny, but I recently let go of my business. And you're probably like, what are you talking about? No, it does not mean I am ending my business or shutting it down or giving up. I essentially, more recently, if you've noticed, I haven't been on Instagram or Instagram stories or sharing on Instagram as much recently. But essentially, I released the pressure I had associated with what my business should look like. I released the tight grip I had on this idea of what I thought my business was supposed to be. I essentially like let my business breathe on its own. And so I wanted to actually share this analogy with you that I was chatting with my biz bestie about it and I was like, "Oh, like this is just like it really stuck with me as I was just like sharing it with her and I wanted to pass it along." You know, I used to think of my business as my baby. Like when I think of the summer 2020, like it was birthed on Instagram, okay? Like day 1 of my business, it was like on Instagram, first post, and I was like, this is real. This is like solidifying this as like I'm doing this. And, like over these past 2 years, like I had to nurture it. I showed up consistently. I put out offers. I shared value. I supported my community and my clients. Like it was a lot of work. And I put a lot of me into it. So, like I say, like when I birthed this business 2 years ago, just imagine like it was as if I was like this is the analogy I was sharing with my friend is I was holding like picture me holding a baby in a pool with the big floaty wrapped around them, right? Like it's a baby, they've got this big floaty and I'm obviously like holding onto them very securely. And it's like now 2 years later, my business has grown into a toddler in that pool. So it's like the floaties are now like on the arms and my biz is a toddler splashing around on its own. Like it can do that, right? But in my head and how I feel like I've been approaching like running my business is that like I still saw my business as a baby that I had to hold tightly onto. Like I was still clenching onto those floaties thinking that my business needed me to always hold on tight, like as if I couldn't let go. And what I realized was like me holding this tight grip on my business was honestly holding it back. And you're probably like, what do you mean by that? Like, obviously, like I am the person to be running it, but it's like I felt a deep attachment to my business, right? Like it's mine. I am the sole provider. I am the one to create, make decisions, share offers, and do all the work. Like, of course, I was attached, but I didn't realize how much that was actually like stifling its growth on its own. And, as I've navigated a lot of things over the past 2 years, like I've really developed and grown, and my business has been like doing well on its own, right? And I made a recent shift and I decided to, support my other passion as a BCBA and go back into a 9 to 5, which I'm like also so excited about. But this kind of created this like trajectory of me thinking about my business differently because now that I have that 9 to 5, I was feeling a lot of things. Like, there's an extra sense of stability now with that. And the thing was like my business was also still secure, but I was still holding a tight grip on my business as if I had to do all the things to keep it afloat in that pool. And, like as I was reflecting, like I was realizing that my business is not my baby. Like it has its own soul and I can let go of my tight grip on it and let it simply be. Because, like, when I think of my business, like, I wasn't giving myself or my business any room to breathe and live. Like, I was constantly checking it. I was constantly on it. I was constantly, like, wanting to make sure that I was sharing value and showing up and, like, doing so many things that, like, it was taking me away from my own, like, life, right? And that in turn can affect, like, the people around me and the relationships I'm in and how I show up, and it wasn't allowing me to, like, embody my values. And, like, my values are really, like, deep connection, being open and honest, like, enjoyment and exploring life, and, like, being confident and healthy. And, like, I honestly, like, I wasn't really fully embodying those, and it was a roller coaster. Like, it's all been a roller coaster being an entrepreneur, and there definitely were moments where I embodied certain things, but, like, when I looked at the big picture, it was like I was clinging to my business so tightly. Like, I was so attached to what I thought it should be and how I thought I should show up to build it and share offers, but that was honestly only keeping my business small. Like, I feel like that didn't allow me to show up as authentically as I wanted to. Like, yes, I can show my life on there, but it was like there was definitely components where I felt like I had to be curated, right? Like, and this goes for anybody on social media or in depending on who you're surrounded by. Like, in certain social circles, we might put up a front, right? Like, there's so many different times in our life or scenarios where we can have these kinds of feelings too. So, going back to this whole concept of, like, letting go of my now toddler business in this analogy here, and watching it float on its own in the pool with its floaties made me realize that it can sustain itself. Like, I did the hard work in the beginning, like, don't get me wrong, like, if someone is starting something, like, there's definitely a component of really trusting yourself and navigating that and showing up in whatever it is that you desire. But when we grow and evolve and expand, if we're clinging on to, like, a past version of ourselves, it's not exactly giving us the like, I'm thinking of, like, a leash attached to our past self, and the more we try to go towards our future self, it's like we're dragging along that past version of ourselves, and we're not really getting to that future that we desire, right? And so, yes, I still show up, but, it's gonna look very different, and in all honesty, like, it feels really fucking good and fun. Like, that is why I'm loving my email list and my podcast with all of you, like, and my collective, like, in my like, honestly, the collective is my, like, group program. Sorry, like, it's a community 12-month mentorship that you're getting a ton of resources, and you get the community and 2 Q&A calls a month. Like, that I'm so, so excited because I am developing an entire curriculum of resources in a big library where you can go to support yourself in your personal development and self-healing journey. And, like, that is where I am putting all of my energy right now. And with you guys on the podcast and my email list, like, those 3 spots are, like, where I am just fueled. Like, this is where my energy is flowing and thriving, and I just friggin' love it. And you know, it was definitely, I mean, I could talk about this in way more detail in relation to, like, my relationship with Instagram itself and, like, what I learned in the beginning of starting a business and being an online coach and what I was taught from, you know, past courses and programs and coaches. Like, I really have to do a lot of unlearning, and that's a part of this process is, like, I am unlearning ways that no longer feel aligned for me, and one, that's okay. Like, it's okay to let go those things, and it doesn't mean that I'm giving up. I'm just choosing to do things differently, and that's gonna feel scary at times, like, fuck yeah. for sure. Like, even me not being on Instagram for the past, like, week and a half, like, it's like it's bringing up those, like, triggered responses of like, "Oh, like, I need to be showing up," or like, "Oh, like, what is my audience gonna think that I'm not showing them what I'm doing on a day to day?" Like, it's like those all of those, like, I am moving through those motions. And so my business isn't going anywhere, and I just wanted to share this as an insight of, like, an example of letting go versus giving up, because that's something I am currently going through. And also, I've been taking the past couple months to completely rejig what I want my one-on-one coaching to look like, and I want it to be more accessible with more levels of support, like tiered coaching, at different price points. And I'm just like, I'm so freaking lit up about completely restructuring what my business is gonna look like moving forward. So you're catching me in this very moment of an evolution, a transition, a transformation for myself and my business, and really supporting where I'm at, what season I'm at in my life right now. And it feels really freaking good. So even though, like, some of you might literally look at my Instagram and be like, "Well, she gave up on her coaching business." Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like there could be those feelers out there, but it's like what matters to me and what is true for me is that I know what I'm doing. I trust what I am navigating, and I trust wholeheartedly that regardless of what comes of like this next evolution of my business, like I am happy, I am safe, it is okay, everything is going to work out, and I wholeheartedly believe that. So, I let go of certain aspects of my business without overwhelming myself with, "Oh my god, what would happen if?" And I just simply trust the process, trusting that where I put my powerful, aligned energy now is where I'm meant to be. And, my business will still be floating on its own, sustaining itself with me looking over, like my feet are in the water. I'm hanging out on the side, watching him, and I share what I want to share and it flows through me and into my business. And I don't need to attach my identity to my business. Like, I can grow and it can grow separately, and that is okay. So, the takeaway from all of this today is that I want you to really think about what things in your life do you feel like you have a tight grip on, whether that's like a past version of yourself that you're scared to let go of because you don't know what those next steps will look like because you've never, like for me, like I am on the journey of becoming a healthier version of myself, and I've never deemed myself a healthy person. So for me to let go of specific old habits and navigating a new healthy lifestyle, it's scary. And, there are a lot of times where I feel like I can fall back into the quote unquote lazy version of myself and eating all of the like quote unquote junk food, and it's like it can be scary to release old versions of ourselves. And it could also be in relationships or friendships. Like, what parts of you or parts of relationships or, you know, situations, expectations, experiences that you are holding on to in the hope and wish that if you hold on to it for longer, like things will change. I want you to really just give yourself space to think about those things and know that, like, we don't always control what will happen, but we can control how we navigate the process. And so, if you're in this state of trying to understand, like, what would it look like to let go of something and having that fear of the unknown come up, I just wanna say, literally take the time to write out that fear scenario. Literally write out your worst case scenario. Write out what you think will happen if you release or let go of that certain thing and what specific things you are super fearful might happen, and make a plan. Because the thing is, when we, just say we'll do something, like if we make a statement like, I will be a healthier person, that will honestly mean jack shit if we don't actually make a plan, like set specific boundaries and steps in place of what the physical action looks like attached to that. So, you know, we don't have to attach ourselves to certain circumstances, people, past experiences, past identities of ourselves. Like you get to choose who you want to be through those circumstances. So if you have a worst case circumstance, actually write out what you fear that will be, and then actually write out the steps that future you, like that, for me, it's like that healthy version of me. Um, how would she respond? How would I ideally want to respond in those situations? When you allow yourself to plan out those moments, it drastically decreases overwhelm when you decide to make those choices. And so, all that to say, today I choose to be trusting, responsible, and caring to that part of me that wants to cling so tightly to these stories about my biz, about my success, about my health. Like, you know, you have it in you to persevere through the hard times and stress and all the worries. Like you can release them without giving up on yourself, on your dreams, on your passions in that process. You can hold yourself with love and compassion as you release these stories and expectations. I just want to say, I see you. You've got this. I love you so much. And if this resonates with you and you're like, ooh, like I really want to work on this, like in a deeper capacity, come join the Redefine Collective. It is going to be such a powerful space with a lot of beautiful pieces of content, psychoeducation topics that all have simple action steps that you can go apply right away. And then go share it and experience it, and put it out into our Facebook community so that you can get the love and support. And with all of that said, I will talk to you guys next week.